Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So, where did Sanad begin? It started with this generation, and we're going to try to keep our emotions in check, but this generation of fathers and mothers, that is my father's generation, if we really give them the credit that they deserve, it would take too much time, but really they're the pioneers. They're the ones who took this step, the leap of faith, coming to North America, establishing the masajid, establishing the businesses, establishing the really core and the foundation of what we're able to build everything on. They were entrepreneurs, they were visionaries, they were risk takers, and really it all begins with them. And so we begin by honoring not only my father and mother, but really all of the grandparents here by acknowledging the fact that they instilled this spirit of possibility and hope and conviction that we can do anything really. And so kind of begins there. And if we continue after that, there are many other precipitating factors as well that kind of influenced our mind and our heart and our efforts. One of them was a really privileged education that I had at Columbia University. And the one thing that I'll share with you is that it wasn't easy. Actually, I don't know if I've shared this publicly, a few people know this privately, but when I applied, I didn't get accepted. They sent me a very polite thanks but no thanks letter. And I had the spirit of my father and his generation in me. And so I went up to Teachers College, Columbia University, and walked into their admissions office. And I remember the guy was like, what is this kid doing? And so he actually was nice enough to let me sit down. He realized very quickly that he has to present something because I'm not going to leave the office. And so he said, you could do this. You could come in the summer and take 3 classes on your own dime. And if you do well in them, then you can reapply and maybe we'll consider you for readmission. And I did that for 3 months over the summer. And at the end of the summer, I got straight A's. And they were kind of pleasantly surprised. And so they wrote nice recommendation letters for me. I reapplied, and alhamdulillah, I got a letter that said, welcome to Columbia University. But the thing that I learned there was himma, to have aspirations, and that anything is possible, and that there are some great opportunities if you just think about them and take advantage of them. So when we were there, we were able to work with the United Nations and do some really cool, interesting things with the Columbia Business School. And growing up in South Florida, kind of in this peninsula of North America, you really are not exposed to a lot of these great ideas and possibilities. So it really expanded my mind, and I saw how hard people were working intellectually and academically, but primarily for dunyawi things. So the interesting that happened right after this experience is that we had an opportunity to travel. And there's no rhyme or reason why this happened either. I can't explain it, but I was on a bus in the middle of Hadramaut, and I ended up at a place called Dar al-Mustafa. And what I learned there is that the heart can be open, and that the soul can be open. And they say about Tarim is that they say that the streets of Tarim are the shaykh for the one who has no shaykh. And so we walked the streets there many days and many nights, and we realized that this is a big world, and there's a lot of things that need to be done. And when you're sitting in the valley of Hadramaut, you're walking in the land of giants, literally, the land of Prophet Hud alayhi salam. And I remember asking one of the brothers there, and asking, what are we doing here exactly? How did this happen that some young guys growing up in Miami and New York and whatnot ended up in this place, And so when we left there, we had a lot to think about. These were 2 things that happened back to back, uptown New York City, and then we're in the desert. Literally, this is the neighborhood that we were in for a couple of months. So that took us to another place. And when we came back from Tarim, we had a lot of decisions to make. And one of them was figuring out what we need to do. And so when we came back from Tarim, we traveled a lot. And one place we went to was Wales. And the reason we went there is because one of our teachers was doing a program there. And actually just on this hillside, it's as beautiful. Actually, it's actually more beautiful than that. But we were on this hillside and we were walking with one of the sons of our teacher. And he asked me this question, what do you do? And I began to explain to him, that I've graduated from this school and, I'm working in the family business and we're doing this and that. And he may have been about 10, 12 years old. And he said, no, what do you do for Islam? What do you do for dawah? What do you do for khidmah? And I literally stopped on the side of that hill and caught my breath, and he shook me, And so I told him some really pathetic things. We're doing some halakas here, and we're doing this, and we're doing that. But the whole flight home, we were thinking about this. And this question remained until we had another important life event. And that was the birth of my son. And so when this happens, you have to start to think, okay, I have to come up with some answers. And so his question was resonating, what do we do, what do we do? And then when you're thinking about, what do you do with this amana? And all of you have been there. If not already, you will be there, inshallah. And the weight of the world was on our necks, and this is not my story. This is the story of Sanad. This is the story of the entire team. This is the story of an idea that came together because there was several people who felt like this. From our board, from our family, to other families, up until today. And so when you're sitting there thinking that you've had this very privileged life, you've had an amazing set of parents, you've had a privileged education, been able to sit at the feet of people who I think are among the friends of Allah, and you're asked penetrating questions about life, and you're introspecting on those things, and then you have this amana on you. What do you do? We couldn't convince ourselves that we could go away for 8 hours in an office building, wherever it may be, and that our child would be safe, that he would be inwardly and outwardly protected, emotionally sound, and spiritually taken care of. And we struggled with that for a long time. And so that led us to forced us to think about sanad. But before we got to sanad, we had this dilemma. And this concept is something that we've all faced, and you're facing it now as well. It's called choice architecture. And what it is basically that you're only able to choose from the options that are presented to you. And there may be 100, but only 5 are highlighted, and 5 are presented, and 5 are made to seem like they're the greatest in the world, and you're stuck choosing from 5 when the reality is there may be many more than that. And so you wonder about your options, and you're thinking about 3 things, and you're never thinking about a 4th or a 5th or more. And this is called choice architecture. Marketers do this very well. And when you come to think of education for your children, you are there with me. What are our options? Public school, okay? Private school maybe, Islamic school possibly, Montessori, I don't know, right? Homeschooling maybe, right? And none of them really satisfy you. At least they didn't satisfy us. So what we did was, we said, let's break the architecture. Let's just break all the buildings and let's start from ground zero. If we wanted something for our child and for other children, what would it be? And so now sanad started to begin. And we said that we had to focus on adab. We had to focus on adab, that at the key of everything is people's moral etiquettes. And if you look at the Prophet, peace be upon him, this is what he emphasized, particularly in children. The other thing that he emphasized was mahabba, love, that he spoke to them with genuineness, with unconditional regard and love. And so we thought about that as the beginning of education for children. We knew that the math, science, English, those parts were relatively easy, but focusing on adab, focusing on the heart, focusing on the soul was something that was the most important thing to us. And then, again, looking at my own family, we have him, my son, and then we had parents, and then in my case, we had a mother as well, a grandmother, right, who is now a widow, and her generation as well. And so we said sanad can be more than just a school. We've never actually tried to call ourselves a school. We've been called that, but we really think we're much more than that. We wanted to become a learning center for families. And that included the child, the parent, and the elders of that family as well, the grandparents. And so what we said was, we'll start with sanad prep. That will be the foundation of what we do. It will be a tuition-based learning center that is predicated on refining and maintaining high adab and having love for Allah and the Prophet ﷺ. And then we said that to do that effectively, we need the cooperation and the support of the parents. And so for parents as well, we started parent workshops. We started Body and Soul, which is a fitness club for parents to keep their body in shape as well as their heart in shape. So we end with dhikr. And then we said for the grandparents, what can we do? How can we serve them and honor them? Because a child is not a child in a vacuum. He or she has parents and they have grandparents. So for the grandparents, we started something called Sanad Guardians. And that was intended to honor the seniors of our community, to incorporate them into the life of the child and their education process. And we're very proud of the fact that we have this intergenerational program where we have guardian learning coaches coming in and tutoring the kids as well. So now you have a child who's surrounded by mahabba, surrounded by educators who love him genuinely, who speak to him and take care of him, parents who are supportive and on the same page as the educators, inwardly and outwardly. And then you have the grandparents who we don't divorce from their suluk. We incorporate them, make sure that they know how to honor them, and make sure that we benefit from the barakah and the wisdom of seniors as well. So Sanad now became much more than just a school. It became a communal learning facility that our hope and our desire is that it strengthens everybody else's work. And so that's where we're planning to go forward. That we found over 6 years that this works. It's not easy, but it works. And the positive residual impacts will be unseen and they will be inshallah forever. What does that mean? That means that the work that Sanad is doing affects everyone. Most directly, it affects the families that we serve and their grandparents as well. But it affects our whole community. We all have a different role and a purpose. And for us, we knew that we needed to help prepare and cultivate and strengthen the hearts. So if it's a free clinic, we needed to have the children with the intellect and the heart to support fi sabilillah. If it was a political activism organization, we needed to have children who are articulate, informed, and passionate and sincere. If it was a masjid that needed support, we needed to create children who are in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come and honor the masajid. So we found that our work was at the hub of so many things, and that the weight of that was taken with conviction and strength and motivation. It didn't discourage us. And so we feel that the positive residual impacts of what we do are great. And so the last thing, or one of the last things I'll mention, and we're hoping that this not only inspires our community, but many communities, is to really rethink the way that we've been doing education. That it's been stagnant for too long. We've been a people, an ummah of innovation. Yes, I said innovation. It's not a bad word. But we've been a people who have looked at physics. We've looked at astronomy. We've looked at science. We've looked at mathematics. And we've excelled. And when it came to education, it seems like we regressed. And we just did what people were doing. So if we did anything, maybe we would do it at Islamic school, but we'll do it exactly the way it's been done for 100 years. We didn't challenge the status quo. We didn't think differently. And it's due time that communities reevaluate. Look at the options that were available to them and realize that there's actually much more that can be done. And we're hoping to be a pioneer of sorts, not just for our community, but for North America. That every family should have an option in every community, like Sanad Trust Foundation. It may not be the best option. We don't have any hubris or pride in what we do, but it's definitely an option. And our goal, inshallah, is to, after establishing our center here in South Florida, is to take it on the road and really offer this opportunity to other families as well, because we feel that if we can transform one child, one family at a time, then we can really work on this community in North America, the Muslim community, the community of humanity that's here, and the community in the world as well that we need to reach and benefit. And so together we can do it, right? Together we can do it. So for tonight, there's a concept called generosity of thought. I'm asking you all to believe in what we're doing, to understand and appreciate it, to think beyond what we have been doing, and to also have a generosity of heart, of course. Because the reality is that these things are dependent on means, but Allah is the creation of those means. We know that. But it's our responsibility to act upon what Allah has given us, right? And we ask Allah by His means, and we know that Allah will put barakah in your hearts tonight, put barakah in your thought tonight, and that you give, inshallah. And the last thing, and we'll conclude with this, is that we wanted to thank Allah. We wanted to thank Allah for the opportunity that He's given us. To thank you very much for being here with us. We want to thank you for supporting us for over the years, and we hope that you'll continue to support us over our lifetime, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.